I'm sorry I can't be in Helsinki for this event to celebrate Leevi's work. I thought I would just say a few words about my relationship to him. We met first in 1994. You'll see a picture of the two of us with similar hats. He had come to New York. I was living on the Upper West Side at that time in search of Paul Auster because I was a friend of Paul's. I put him in touch, and I think he was going to interview Paul for some Finnish newspaper or something like that. And we had been in touch a little bit before that, but we immediately hit it off. And so over the next 20, 25 years, we were in touch pretty frequently. And after a while, Leevi became one of my closest friends and one of the people I felt most in touch with, and who shared so many of the aesthetic and political interests and values that I had. It's kind of interesting because we were from such different places. Of course, New York and speaking English, and Leevi from Helsinki and speaking Finnish. Very different literary traditions, very different places. And yet, at the same time, whenever we talk, we seem to have a similar interest, similar reading, similar engagement. It's kind of uncanny, but over time I realized that this is the life that we are both in, which is a kind of non-national connection among a small group of poets who are interested in formal innovation and what that has to do with political reflection, changes of consciousness, sound values, digital programs, performance. Leevi invited me to Helsinki a few times, and I had great moments with him and reading there, and actually we also did a conversation which was transcribed on something that we called Finno-Saxon. You can look up what Finno-Saxon is, but Finno-Saxon was our imaginary meeting space between the two of us, a place that was originary for the kind of pataquarical or pataphysical or imaginary writing that we had in mind. I really love this book, Lake Onega, which is a collection of Leevi's poems in English. I think that these are as good as any other English poems of a poet of my generation. And they haven't been really fully recognized in as a book of American poetry or British poetry, because of course they're not. There's no real place for this work to exist. I think it's the possibility for the future, having English language poetry written by people who are not English language speakers. It seems to me that seizing and transforming of English is the greatest and maybe the only hope for American poetry. Otherwise, we'll suffer in our own monolingualism. One poem has always caught my eye, and I love very much, and I'm going to read this. It's a poem by Leevi Lehto called Words Arrive by Night. I've said about this many times before. In every toilet of the house there is a light on. Bridges flow east. Words arrive by night, without knocking. This happened in a faraway country nearby. I've said about this many times before. In every toilet of the house there is a light on. Bridges flow east. In countryside the trees had not broken into run yet. This happened in a faraway country nearby. I've said about this many times before. In every toilet of the house there is a light on. The president himself was utterly paralyzed. In countryside, the trees had not broken into run yet. This happened in a faraway country nearby. I've said this many times before. In every toilet of the house there is a light on. Bridges flow east and words arrive by night without knocking. Now, I did a translation directly from the Finnish, a homophonic translation, so made to sound exactly like Leevi's original. The original title is Sanat Tulevat Yola, so my title is Sane as Tugged Vat Your Love. I don't know if you can hear when I was saying the Finnish and the English because they sound so close together. Sanat Tulevat Yola, Sane as Tugged Vat Your Love. Oh, when sanity tasted of muffled curtsy, Talon, Yocasta's vivisected valor, silly virtual item, sane as tugged vat, your love, kaput, tamed tapestries, caressed masters, tasseled luau's. Oh, when sanity tasted of muffled curtsy, Talon, Yocasta's vivisected valor, silly virtual item, Medusa pouts as Vat's veil's oldest lament jokes, tamed tapestries, caressed masters, tasseled luau's. Oh, when sanity tasted of muffled curtsy, Talon, Yocasta's vivisected valor, President he itzy, oily, laminated, Medusa pouts as Vat's veil's oldest lament jokes, tamed tapestry, caressed masters, tasseled luau's. Oh, when sanity tasted of muffled curtsy, Talon, Yocasta's vivisected valor, silly virtual item, yeah, sane as tugged vat, your love, kaput. It's remarkable how this poem, written decades ago, foresees President Trump. In the line, President he itzy, oily, tainted, laminated. Very accurate description of what has come to pass in the year since I last saw Leevi. In one conversation we had on an earlier trip on the Upper West Side, sitting at Artie's, the Jewish deli, Leevi pointed out to me that a lot of times when people speak about poetry as opposition and oppositional practice and the kind of organizing that we're both involved in Leevi's case, the incredible small press publishing and magazine publishing and translation, and I'm so grateful to him for translating 2 of my books. You see a cover of one of them and us sitting together at the launch. You see another picture in this group of Arkady Dragomoshenko and Leevi and I reading together in Helsinki. But Leevi noted about all of this activity that the counter-hegemonic, Antonio Gramsci's term for opposition against the dominance, doesn't stop just with opposition. That the goal of the counter-hegemonic is to achieve hegemony. Now, not hegemony that excludes, but perhaps some kind of poetic hegemony that would be open to the kinds of wild vistas, the wilderness of poetry represented by Leevi Lehto's work. Sadly, in 2017, that has not yet occurred. But we can still wait and see what will happen tomorrow. I want to know what the first Finnish poem is.
First Finnish poem?
Yeah.
Well, it's Kalevala. If you mean first in time.
And what is that about?
That's about Sampo. You never heard about Sampo?
No.
If you ask Rachel Blaudet-Blessy, she's the main authority on Sampo. Sampo is this machine that makes money. It's also a big Finnish band, an ancient insurance company. But so what Kalevala is all about is chasing for Sampo, which the heroes never. Well, they find it in the end, but then they lose it. At least that is how it goes in Haavikko's interpretation of Sampo. I don't remember how it is in Kalevala.